Okay, this is a photograph that was taken in a visit to Ohio between our first and second year in Marathon. And there we have our little dog,
Ginger.
And there was an article written about us, which you see on the left-hand side, in the Universe Bulletin, which is the diocesan newspaper of the Diocese of Cleveland.
So when you went back home to visit after you
Yeah,
had
in
already
the
went to
summer.
Maryland.
Yes. I guess it was a special deal because usually not a married couple join together. Usually it's just single ministry. So because we were a married couple, they put us in Marathon where we were actually the DREs, which is the director of all the religious education.
For actually two parishes.
Yes, in Marathon, St. Mary's, and then in Fort Davis, which is St. Joseph's. So, we just wanted to show you that. We made a little album of all our adventures at that time to help us kind of reflect on what we did. But when we got to Marathon, what was the first impression?
Well, okay, you're skipping over.
Well,
the
no,
training.
we're not going to do this. We're going to go from
First
memory.
impression in Marathon is that it's the most wide open spaces we had ever seen. If whatever you think about Montana or Wyoming, this was wider open.
And it was a very, very small town. I mean, very small. I think we had, 600 people?
450.
450 or something.
So let me ask you.
Yes, yes.
Before you had taken this 3-day drive out there in a Volkswagen bus.
Yes.
What's the farthest away from Ohio, Parma, and that whole area that you had been?
I went on a trip to
Virginia.
Virginia with one of my girlfriends, and we went to
Historic
see places, and that was it. I had never.
So you really hadn't been out of the green wooded areas of the country at all?
No. My dream was to go. I guess in the back of my mind, I'm a cowgirl by nature. So when I heard we were going to Marathon, Texas, I thought, horses, cowboys, the works. And so I was very
And
excited.
that's exactly what we got, horses and cowboys.
And how far west had you been prior?
West, farthest west I was St. Louis, Missouri. Farthest east I was up and down the coast, like in New Jersey and Maryland. But in north, up into Canada, because we lived right on the border with Canada, Niagara Falls and whatnot. And west north would be into Michigan. That's about the extent of it until we left home with the Volkswagen bus.
So you pull in, daytime, nighttime, first impressions. What did you guys have there?
It was at the end of the day, the sun was setting, we were driving into the sun, and we hadn't seen anything move for the last hour.
It was quite adventurous. I think Father Bertasius was there to meet us, I believe, and he was Lithuanian, right? His nationality. So that was very exciting. He was very delighted to see us, and I remember that although we were stationed in Marathon, we would go every Wednesday to Fort Davis to teach all the children there. And every time we went there, he would make us the same supper. It was a big pot.
A big roast.
A big roast. It was always potatoes, carrots, and roast beef, right? Always.
Always.
But it was really good.
In their own juices. Yeah.
So it wasn't any kind of a Mexican dish because we hadn't been introduced to any of that yet.
He didn't know how to do that.
Yeah, so
When we pulled in the Marathon, he introduced us to our living quarters,
Oh, yes.
which we were not prepared for. It was an addition to the church. The church had been built, I think, in 1903, stone church, but they made an adobe addition to the back of the church, which included a sacristy, a living room, a kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom. That was our quarters. So one of our rooms was the sacristy, which on every Sunday became public property.
So from our living room area, we had to go through the sacristy to get to the kitchen. So it was exciting.
exciting. Huh?
Yes.
And what was really exciting, at least for me, was that from the west door, I could actually see there was nothing between me, one ranch house, and sunset.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Nothing except 3 mountain ranges and the sunset. Literally.
How did your minds cope with the lack of green tree enclosure?
That was a little bit challenging for me because coming from that area of Ohio, it's beautiful Ohio,
Forest City.
we had to really, the desert kind of slowly incorporated into our inner being, and we just began to really love it. We
It was
loved it.
summertime when you went?
Yes,
yeah, it was at the end of
yes,
summer.
yeah.
So how was the
Finishing our training.
how was the 100+ degree dry weather?
It was
Actually,
okay. It was
2 points. The drive from San Antonio, where we were trained, to Marathon
oh, yeah.
was a progression in tree reduction size.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're expecting it. It's not sudden. Every 100 miles, the trees get another 2 feet shorter until pretty soon they're not above your knee. And number two, in that same transition, you go from about 70% humidity to 7% humidity. It's a big transition, and you also climb in altitude from about 1,500 feet to 5,000 feet. So you're climbing, climbing, climbing all the time you're driving, and you go through 3 major river gorges, all feeding into the Rio Grande, and those are exciting. You'd spiral down one cliff, go across the Pecos River, and spiral back up on the other side. It was amazing, and there's just very, very few tiny towns between there and where we were going. So it didn't come upon us as a great surprise.
What surprised me a little bit is that I didn't really know my husband until we started traveling, because he is the kind of a fella that always wants to see what's over the next hill. He wants to go, okay, let's go explore where that goes to. And that has been his,
Modus operandi.
yes, all our married life, I think, right? So, yes, it was quite adventurous. The people were very, very kind, very loving and welcoming. They just were so glad we're there to assist them in their spiritual understanding and walk. We did have a couple of visitors that were a little not quite welcome, especially the tarantula in my kitchen sink. After a rain, that was a little challenging. And after here comes Mr.
Hero.
And he scoops it up. What'd you do? You
I put a
cup over it, or scooped it up and took it outside.
Mm-hmm.
It was for him. It was easy, but that was a little frightening. Did we see many rattlesnakes where we were?
Yes, we
Yeah.
had some even on our front porch.
Yeah, so that was a little challenging too.
Because we were on the edge of the desert. We were on the edge of town. And we were on a hill, so we had these great views.
But we did acquire that cute little dog, Ginger, and she was wonderful. She would chase the bunnies, and she would chase the rattlesnakes away. So it was
Where did you get
That's
her?
great.
There?
In Alpine,
in Alpine, Texas.
at the pound.
Yeah, at the pound.
Oh, you went to adopt her.
Yeah, we went to adopt.
How was the big town of Alpine?
Alpine was 30 minutes away to the west in a hollow, and it's named after its surrounding mountains. And it's a good shopping center area there. It's about 6,000 people, so they had things that none of the other towns had as far as purchasing.
I think every week we made a trip to Alpine for groceries.
We went through Alpine on the way to Fort Davis, so if we
yeah.
needed something, we would get it
Yes,
there.
that's right.
So every time you guys jumped in the cart, it was kind of an adventure to see what you were going to see next with whatever town you drove through, wherever you were going.
Well, going west, you had Alpine in 30 minutes. In any other direction, it was beyond an hour till you met another dwelling.
But
You
we
go
swerved off to go to Fort
north?
Davis, right?
No, but if we went north to Fort
Oh,
Stockton,
yes.
hour plus.
Yes.
If you went east to Sanderson, it was an hour plus. If you went south to the Big Bend, it was an hour and a half before you saw settlement.
So let's talk about the kids and what we did with them.
Okay.
So we had the first communion classes, and Papa had the confirmation classes and adults. So we were really incorporated into the children and adults in the Catholic community. And we did lots of fun things. I remember I guess it was the fifth graders, we got together because we were going to have a visit from Mrs. Lyndon B. Johnson coming right through Marathon. So I remember we made a big sign. All the kids drew a sign and kind of went into a box, and we said welcome. We spelled welcome out. And she
Put
actually...
one letter per box.
Yeah. Actually, she stopped. Remember,
Yes,
she
she
stopped?
did. She told them to stop, and the photographers, and she posed with the kids in the boxes.
So they were really excited because nothing like this happens in
To
Marathon.
meet
Wife.
the president's
Wife.
wife of the United States in Marathon, Texas.
It was a big deal.
And it said, "Welcome, Mrs. Johnson." It was a lot of boxes, and they were big enough to just fit a child, each one. Put the head out through the top.
So that was fun.
Let's stop right there.
Yeah.
Apparently we did all the early teaching in the church itself,
Yes.
but an opportunity presented itself that we took advantage of. Yeah, one of the things that our arriving in Marathon coincided with was the state law changed where separate but equal schools was declared unconstitutional. And so Texas had to change their educational system throughout the state. Wherever they had made Hispanic or black people separate from white people in the school system, they now had to integrate them in that same year, 1965. And so the Mexican school, quote unquote, on the south side of town, where they were segregated on the other side of the tracks, which is literally true, other side of tracks all over West Texas, the Mexican school became obsolete. And through a friendship I developed with the county judge, we were able to be the high bidder on the purchase of the entire Mexican school, an entire city block, which contained a large hall with stage, 3 classrooms, and a brand new bathroom facility and water pump and well and pressure tank and windmill, all brand new. And it became our property for $12.35 under the bid process.
Nobody else wanted it, right?
Oh, we had bids, but we had a friend in the courthouse.
Oh, okay.
So when we adopted this new building, we immediately took possession of it, and we had to buy 50 chairs, folding chairs, and that's where the boxes came from.
Oh,
The folding chairs came 4 chairs to a box. So we had all these boxes, and all of a sudden Mrs. LBJ was coming to town. And I thought, brainstorm. We wanted the kids to really be involved, not just waving handkerchiefs.
Yeah.
So they really did, and they were
was fun.
thrilled.
It was fun.
And she was on her way to the Big Bend Park, which is what we were on the route for, to make a major dedication. And that's why.
Yeah,
So
she came through.
anyway, when we started to teach at the Mexican school, which now was St. Mary's Parish School, we had the 3 classrooms, 2 of which we made classrooms, with surplus equipment we purchased from Saul Ross University, college desks and students' chairs and shelving, and loaded them all in volunteer dump trucks and hauled them back from Alpine. And we cleaned the school up, fixed the windows, and then the 3rd room we turned into a library, which is another interesting story, because I wrote to Sodality at the University of Dayton, my old club, and I asked them to donate all old books they could for a little town like ours, especially things that would teach trades or skills. And we got 9 boxes that weighed about 50 pounds apiece with books from the University of Dayton Sodality Club and from their library and their surplus books. And we put them in, fill all the shelves in this room of library, which they never had that either, their own library.
So you were trying to get books of Not necessarily religious books, but
Right.
All kinds.
Skills, trades, carpentry, plumbing, electricity, science, physics, something that, but it was their own, something that was theirs.
did people come by to get those books?
Yeah, we were trying to get the adults interested
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
because there was so much there that could improve their skill level. Now, you gotta remember the number one job in town was being a cowboy. Literally, this is in the middle of cow ranching country. Number 2 was store clerk. Number 3 was an automobile mechanic at a gas station because it was far and few between gas stations. And then the other thing that made Marathon economically viable was tourism on its way to the Big Bend National Park. Stay overnight, refuel, maybe eat there in Marathon. So, and the other thing that we made good friends with was the postmistress, because she was the living newspaper in town. Anything you wanted to find out, you went to the post office and asked her, what's going on? And she had all the answers. It was just like you see in the movies or in an old novel or something.
But remember also with the building, you added a kitchen.
Right. A very elderly gentleman who was a maestro in many construction areas and didn't speak one word of English. And I decided to put a kitchen on the school hall that we purchased. So we built an adobe kitchen on the side, and we got government surplus stoves and refrigerators. But I have actually built a 14 by 14 by story and a half high adobe building on a concrete foundation.
So this gave them an opportunity to have dinners and more fiesta type.
Yeah, so did the church immediately go into utilizing that?
Yes, because they had
Fundraising and events?
they had the gorditas and the fajitas, the dinners to raise money for other functions.
So
But the
it
main thing is, it was their place.
Yes.
They're no longer just, by the grace of our goodness, you can use my facility. This was their place. And then when Christmas came, Jerry put on, organized and put on and trained
Christmas play, yeah.
teenagers a Christmas program.
Oh my gosh,
And
that
it
was
was
so
so
much fun.
much fun. She wrote the script, the guys all did the backdrops and the stage props.
And they helped with the
and
costumes and
the-
everything, yeah.
And they sewed costumes, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, we
And
had a good
so
time.
much giggling going on.
So, was there a regular priest at the parish where you were?
He would
Did you-
visit every Sunday.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
so
that
he
was-
he
yes.
was a visiting priest. So
Yeah.
you guys were the heads of the church.
We were the church 6 days a week.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So he would come on Sunday, and then we would go to his parish at
On
St.
Wednesdays.
and Wednesdays, because that's where he was the pastor of St. Joseph's.
And
And
then
the mission church, of course,
Jerry
was
would
Saint,
teach the K through 3, First Communion. I would teach pre-confirmation. And these kids had never had really systematic religious education, maybe some
Right.
haltering attempts at it with the local people. So we tried to do a lot of catching up.
Yeah, we were only there 2 years, so in that time frame, we were, we didn't do as much as we wanted to do, but we were able to do enough to just let them feel that they're not forgotten.
Were you guys successors to anybody else that was there before you, or is the first time?
We were
that
the
was-
We
the
were
first.
the first, and after we left, another volunteer came, but he was single and he didn't last very long, and which is why the married couple was the right idea for out here. Because that poor guy suffered from loneliness and culture shock at the same time. He was from Chicago, but it was very interesting. But we got so many people got into the sacraments, blessed marriages, confirmations. It was a major work. It really was. I don't know if that place was ever strong enough to support volunteers ongoing for years and years and years and years.
Yes, yes.
I don't know.
Did Alpine, the largest city in the area, did they
Yeah, it was a
have-
county seat.
But
It was
did
the
they have regular?
Resident priest, yes.
resident priest.
But
they
did they
did.
have anybody that handled religious formation or anything else
Yes.
like that in Alpine?
In
Oh,
Alpine,
yeah, in
yes.
Alpine they did.
But it was a
yes.
35-minute drive to Alpine. And the town, the cars weren't that good, if you know what I'm trying to say. But Alpine was a very cosmopolitan little town. It had a small hospital, had the courthouse, had a bank, had a haberdashery, had a Safeway store, and a dog pound. It was, like a little city. And they had a parish church there, beautiful church, with sometimes more than one priest, because they still had a lot of outreaching areas to go. And
Just a little side note, do you remember the people welcomed us so well, the Hispanic people, but the Chamber of Commerce was a little leery of us. They thought, who are these young people coming from the east? Are they rebel rousers? Are they going to cause some trouble? But we befriended them, and
right, we did befriend them, and we
yeah.
did things for them that were favors that really helped befriend them. But we got to watch this setting. If you know your American history, go back to the middle 60s. They were troubled years. Vietnam War, protests, blacks and whites fighting each other, and then these two gringos show up in town, and what would you think in the eyes of a ranch woman? What's coming to town here with these Catholic Hispanic people? They're going to organize and protest us and go on strikes. Who knows? So there was a lot of suspicion at first.
Yeah.
Well, you guys did show up in a Volkswagen bus.
But we did show up in a Volkswagen bus. That was humility itself.
So I guess they thought we were hippies.
Yeah, this was the age of the hippies and flower children. There weren't any flowers on our bus.
No, we were.
Another thing, a thing that really cemented our relationship with the Women's Council is they met in their own little beautiful and very old historic rock-walled building.
Yes.
All made out of, like our fences around our house here. And it was run down. The roof leaked, the windows good. You don't want to even touch the windows. And I got 3 16-year-old Hispanic kids to go over there, and they restored the building, and I got them paid through the National Youth Corps. I paid them through and those kids were polite. I mean, that's what I'll tell you, that all those children in Marathon were
Very polite, yes.
Respectful. Not your city twirling type children.
Yeah.
Everything was yes ma'am in English, yes sir. Yeah, it was wonderful people. But when those ladies got their building restored, their hearts melted. Inside and out, completely refurbished.
I forgot that. I remember now, yes.
We were in Marathon. I got very involved with the War on Poverty. I was nominated and accepted a position as a director of 105, and the War on Poverty for the Big Bend area was all-inclusive. And we met every week in Marfa, Texas, and we were able to propose and monitor various war on poverty programs. The most thing you can relate to would be a program called Head Start. And every community was encouraged to have a Head Start. We would organize, nominate, and make sure it was funded. And so that put us into political contact, and we accepted a position, an invitation to go to Washington, D.C. at the request of our local House of Representative, which was Richard White. He was a wonderful man, a very experienced lawyer and politician from El Paso, but his area included the Big Bend. And so we had to go to watch the Senate and the House of Representatives. We went to cocktail parties. We went, and then saw, of course, the monuments and everything. But we got to be in the inner circle of a few meetings with Democrats, and that, along with my visits to Democratic meetings in Austin, Texas, because of our work with the War on Poverty, that I definitely changed myself to Republican after I met the true Democrats at the highest levels.
The behind the scenes stuff?
Yeah, we were into behind the scenes meetings about how to distribute money whatnot in programs.
So
and
it's
we
different.
also, pressure was put on us to put certain programs in that we didn't agree with at the local level. And the pressure was pretty substantial to do that. So we formed some gray enemies in Austin too. So that was interesting. Then, what was the other thing we were going to mention? We got this
Well, this was kind of like the end of
towards
their
the end,
second
yeah.
second year in.
And then we also would visit all the other volunteers in our
yes,
diocese.
diocese.
That was one way we kept our camaraderie up. We would visit everywhere from Conatillo and Las Cruces all the way down into the Big Bend and all the way up to Monahans and in places like that. They were all had volunteers. There were over 500 and 600 volunteers our first year, all over the western states.
Yes, well, we'll talk about that in a
Mm-hmm.
minute. But anyway, at almost near the end of our second year, I was with child, and this was our first child coming, and it was so sweet because the ladies of the town gave me a baby shower, and that was really sweet. They got all together and bought actually a baby crib for me. Yeah, so since this was my first baby coming, they were very sweet, very sweet. But so that June, we kind of ended our second year, and we packed everything up and said our cheerful goodbyes, and we said, okay, where are we going next? And so we looked at each other and says, well, the biggest town next is to us is El Paso, Texas.
And I had a job.
Did you have a job before we left?
We had a job before we left.
Oh, that's right. I know
which
what.
bore our decision to go to El Paso.
Now tell what your job was.
Okay, I was given offered a position to be the Western Extension Volunteer Supervisor, Field Supervisor.
Right.
And the middle of the territory was El Paso.
Yeah.
Because the territory on the west and north went to Wyoming, and on the east and to the south went to Mississippi. We didn't go into Arizona, so what was central in that boomerang shape was El Paso, because the Panhandle in Texas and Oklahoma was another supervisor. So I had the L-shaped district, and I
That
knew
was
I was going to have
big.
to fly
Yes,
out.
that's right. So
And you don't
that's-
fly out of Alpine.
No, we don't fly out. So El Paso was actually the kind of the center of all the area.
And the
Yeah,
diocese.
the diocese,
We
too.
knew people in El Paso.
Yeah.
And so we moved to El Paso and immediately hunted for a mobile home and put it on a piece of property at the what was it?
Deluxe Trailer
Deluxe Trailer
Plaza.
Park on Alameda Street
No, Deluxe Trailer Plaza.
Plaza. Across the street from the Bronco Drive-In, if people need to know landscape-wise what it looked like.
So did you guys know anything about El Paso and its culture and the neighborhoods?
Well-
Only because we had visited El Paso
Once.
approximately 4 times for diocesan meetings.
Yes.
We know El Paso. And we
Well-
had a few contacts. One of our best contacts was the general editor of the Catholic newspaper, who had
At the
come
time.
out to Marathon to see us. And when we first went to El Paso, we spent the night in his house. He was very generous. It was Mr. Rubio, Joe Rubio, and his wife, Darlene.
Yes.
And they were wonderful people.
So
And
what
he
did you think of El Paso the first time you guys
Well, it was overwhelming. I'll tell you this funny story. We had been in
Full
Marathon for
stories.
at least a whole year, and we went into El Paso,
Oh, yeah.
and we went to the Bassett Shopping Center.
No, it was a Popular.
We went to the Bassett Shopping
Well, that
Center,
had Popular.
and we walked into the Popular
There you
department
go.
store,
There you go.
and I turned and I said to my sweet wife, "We've died and gone to heaven." There are sidewalks outside, and the floor inside is marble.
Yes,
And we had
marble.
been so used to walking on dirt. An idea of pavement was a quickly done asphalt with rounded shoulders.
Well, the Popular at that time was an outdoor mall, was it not?
It was
Well,
an
it was
open mall.
I mean, Bassett Center.
Bassett
Bassett
Center. It was
Center.
an
Bassett
open
Place
mall.
was an
Open mall, yes.
But it
Those
catered
guys.
to the high-end people.
So the Popular was.
And it had a water fountain in the center. And I said, "We've died and gone to heaven. This is paradise in here."
Oh. yes.
And Joe Rubio doubled over laughing.
So did you guys, were you excited to come to El Paso? Were you excited to kind of move back into a city that
well-
offered more? Or did you
I think
more
we
sad?
I felt like we were getting way ahead of ourselves. Because buying a mobile home, brand new.
We didn't have lick of furniture, so a mobile home was
Furnished.
furnished at the time. So I thought would be the answer, because we didn't want to rent, because we would have to get furniture, and we were nowhere ready to buy a house or
And we
settle down
qualified
anywhere.
because I had a job.
Yeah.
So,
So,
why did you decide on Alameda to put the mobile home?
how did we
It was the nicest mobile home park.
yeah, it was
Most
very
of them were
nice.
just jungles, you know what I mean?
And it was close to Our Lady of the Valley
Valley Church.
Church.
But the mobile home park was kept by a Mormon family, and it was really clean
It was very nice.
and
yes.
landscaped and paved, and it was very welcoming, and we really liked it.
And it had a swimming pool, which was great, because
We used it.
we had kids coming.
You referenced Our Lady of the Valley. So what came first, the location of the mobile home, or was the
A combination,
Probably a
because from the
combination,
back
yes.
of the mobile home park to the church was about 100 yards. So we'd walk to church on Sunday, and that was good.
yeah.
Yes, but I was pregnant, remember?
Did you
So-
guys get involved a lot with Our Lady of the Valley?
Yes,
Oh,
we sure did.
Yes, we did.
That's how we met most of the people we still know in El Paso today, like the
Yeah.
Ivies,
Yes.
big Ivies, you know, the Joanne and Jims
Because they
and the
lived
Mary
in the village
Joyces.
at the time, right?
Yes.
Off of North Loop?
Yes. Yes. But well, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you mentioned the Rubios, because little Johnny came along in August, and we really didn't know anybody that well there, so we asked the Rubios if they would be the godparents of little Johnny. And they did. They were very happy to do that.
But we did have a Our Lady of the Valley connection with the Rubios, because
Oh, yes.
Mrs. Rubio was actually the daughter of a very prominent member of Our Lady of the Valley.
Yes.
And what was the family name?
Lawrence.
The Lawrence family.
Lawrence family.
And so that was like a shoe-in right there into that parish.
Yes.
And then he was the ag teacher at Isleta High School, Mr. Lawrence, and a very, very well-respected man. And he had beautiful children and a wonderful wife.
Yes.
That starts the whole time here in El Paso.
And when we
Yes.
got involved with the youth group and CCD training at Our Lady of the Valley, and Joanne Ivy was a teacher at Our Lady of the Valley and was one of our co-advisors in the youth group.
Yes, we
The
worked
teenage
together with the
group.
teenagers, and you taught confirmation, I taught First Communion. We just went right in there.
And they still had nuns there at
Yeah.
that time.
I remember it was Father Tickle who was the pastor at the time.
No, he was at first assignment.
Oh, well, who was the pastor?
Monsignor
Oh,
Gary.
Monsignor Gary, I remember now. Yes, he was wonderful. And then we had Father Tickle, right? Yes.
Father Tickle was first assigned there.
Yes.
The first time I met Father Tickle, he was straight out of the seminary. And he said, "Who's in charge here of the microphone system?" So he says, "I need a very long microphone cable." I said, 20 feet? No, 50 feet. So I searched and groveled, and I found a 50-foot extension cable for the microphone. Why did he need it? He couldn't give a sermon from the pulpit. It
Yeah.
had to be up and down
Yes.
the aisle.
I remember him.
That's
walking over.
Father Tickle.
He was wonderful.